In the Revachol Citizens Militia, there is only one officer superstar. This is his story. So given that we just got so much information out of Joyce, I want to go through and make sure we got everything from Kim, too. So let's just walk down the list, because that was super productive to do it with Joyce. Tell me about the case again, Kim.
What do you want to know?
Here we go. See, I guess we never did these. Would you say this is a mysterious case?
No, it's not a particularly mysterious case.
Well, why not, Kim?
The deceased is a security guard for a corporation involved in a labor dispute. It doesn't take a DeLorean polymath to put the pieces together. I just don't see the case getting more mysterious than that.
I thought we went through all of these. Maybe that first time we died I had done this. I don't remember. Okay, so the case probably isn't mysterious, but could it be sexy?
There was some interest in this case at my station, but not for the reasons you have in mind. You seem to wish there was
Maybe there's a young woman involved. Yeah, we actually think there is.
Yes, it just so happens there's a beautiful, blonde 19-year-old woman at the heart of this case. A rich one, in fact. Part of a murder sex cult.
That wasn't quite what I was thinking. Didn't Hardy tell us that they finally decided to kill the security guard when he raped a young girl from Revachol? From Martinez?
The weary tone is the surest indicator that the lieutenant is being sarcastic.
It doesn't have to be a cult. It can just be a sex murder.
That's commendable. Was there anything else?
No, he just completely blew us off.
It can still be an otherworldly sex mystery in your head, with a dark twist even.
Yeah, but I think that's probably the only place it's going to be mysterious.
He's basically challenging you to sex it up with some lurid twist. Don't get right into it. Sit on it a bit. Then hit him with it.
Okay, we will. Then let's go on to this one. If we're from different precincts, why are we on the same case?
I'm afraid you and I are pawns in a pissing competition.
I know we did this. I must have just somehow skipped over it after bringing us back from the dead. What do you mean?
You don't know? I assumed you were in on it.
You know what I'm in on? Retrograde amnesia, Kim.
Better still than an imbecilic cop-off.
Cop-off?
It's just stupidity.
What kind of stupidity?
The cop kind. Our precincts can't decide if Martinez is part of Jamrock or the Industrial Harbor. Yours or mine, as if we somehow own parts of the city. Typical street gang mentality. So we've let the Union make a mockery of law enforcement here, and now it's come to its natural conclusion.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. Neither precinct was willing to take ownership of Martinez, so now it's just gone to hell. So this is a struggle over who runs Martinez, Kim?
Well, sort of. It's less a matter of who gets to police Martinez than who has to. It's an orphan district, in other words.
Yep.
I think the dispatch desk just told both our stations about the hanging. There was quite the brouhaha at the 57th, I can tell you that. Time to settle it, they said. Cop off. But I assure you, I am not their finest or toughest with 102 cases solved. What I am is least interested in a pissing competition.
Yeah, and Superstar is not interested in a pissing competition either. He's got his own stuff going on.
So he volunteered to represent the 57th, but not out of competitiveness. On the contrary.
Kim is such an upstanding guy.
Somewhere in your mind hangs a dark green blackboard. There are two columns. One says, cases solved. The other, confirmed kills.
Let's go from the top here. Let's close our eyes.
The rows are endless.
Look for Precinct 41.
Jean Vicmer, Judith Minot, a special consultant. What was his name? Then the rows degrade into green nothingness.
So you volunteered to spoil the cop-off, Kim?
Yes. I'm an unrepentant spoil sport.
Nice. Very nice. You're definitely a spoil sport, but we like you anyway. For some reason, I thought you had 104 solved cases.
Well, technically. The official record keeper has been known to double-count murder-suicide.
That's ridiculous.
A common accounting gimmick used to inflate precinct stats.
I don't like either of these responses, but let's go with this one. This is the least offensive. So you're still a good cop, right?
I'm good enough for this case. I'm not here to compete. I came because I had to. My fellow officers, the sergeants in particular, would have made this scene into a circus.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I did my best to make it into a circus and you stopped us. What's special about Martinez, Kim?
Martinez? Nothing. It's just a puddle at the end of some drain pipe. No one cares about this place. They care about sports. Most of our colleagues don't even know how to get here. North of the interchange doesn't exist.
Pretty sad.
A tremble comes over you. Another after effect of ethanol poisoning, perhaps. Feels like leaves do when they rustle in the breeze, somewhere far away, below the turbine. The 41st and the 57th. The lieutenant was right. It's not about who gets what's north. It's about who doesn't.
Martinez is a giant hot potato. I wonder what this says about me that I was sent by my station. He raises an eyebrow, thinking it best to let you make the next move.
It's all part of the master plan, you see.
These are all very interesting. I'm just going to scroll, and if you want to read them, you can pause. Oh, how boring to say I'm going to leave why I was sent unspecified. Fine, I'm a highly experimental cop, but if I am right, this is outre by my standards, and I'm sure I mispronounced outre.
Really?
Forget it, it's too much.
Was there anything else you wanted to ask about the competition? If not, we should move.
Okay, enough of the competition then. Tell me something else.
Yes, it's a wholly pointless matter. Forget I ever mentioned it.
Oh, we completed a secret task. Interesting.
He's actually glad it's addressed now.
Awesome. See, this is great that we're going through all this stuff. So we've got, oh wow, why did the 41st send me as logic? Convince Kim that there's a sexy dark mystery in the... Okay, well, we need much higher Inland Empire to make this worthwhile, but we can certainly do this. Let's try this first. I want to talk about you, Kim.
What about me?
You're wearing glasses.
That's correct.
That makes him a binoclard. Completely uncopped material, if you say so yourself.
Why would we call him a binoclard? We're not a dick. No, I'm not going to call him a bino. Glasses are cool.
Are they? They are mostly just cumbersome.
You could use a good, normal pair yourself.
Let's change the subject.
Okay, let's bail from here and increase our logic because I'm not taking any chance. So do we have any clothing that can help our logic? Aha, the auditor. Aha, we're cranking our logic way up. Oh my gosh, more logic here? Okay, check it out now. We have a 9 logic. 9 logic, that's amazing. And we have 6 points to spend. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's go back to Kim.
Yes?
Okay, why did the 41st send me? We have a 97% chance, which I believe is the highest you can possibly get.
Look at you. It's because you're a failure. They sent you to slight Precinct 57.
Yeah, that makes more sense than the other stuff I thought of.
Just think about it for a second. You're a raging alcoholic who showed up 3 days late wearing piss-stained disco garb. You weren't sent here to win.
We're not going to keep it to ourselves. We've really opened the kimono to Kim, so we're going to continue to do that. Kim, what if my precinct sent me on this case because I'm a fuck-up? Like, as a joke?
I've considered it.
So it's true.
It would be immensely ugly of them, not to mention unprofessional. But I also think it's somewhat unlikely.
Really? I think it's very likely.
I checked the records. This jurisdiction dispute, who polices Martinez, reaches back to the 30s. It's as old as my station. And all this time we can't decide who gets Martinez? I think, yes, both stations would prefer a win.
Ah, so you are their finest.
I am the finest of nothing.
Do you really see me as a safe bet?
Safe? No. But you're old. You've made it this far. Something has brought you through. We've only just started working together, so I don't know what it is yet. But it's there.
Kim, you're just such a nice guy.
So no, I don't think they sent you as a joke. And even if they did, they are in for a surprise.
Oh, that's very kind of him to say. We also just healed morale, and this is the first time that we've healed morale that it's made a difference because we had 1, and now we're up to 2. Okay, well that was pretty darn satisfying. As if we do, you seem to be following me.
Excuse me?
Beat it, you're cramping my style? No. Nothing, just an observation.
You have a distinctive way of walking. If I were to walk in front of you, we would surely collide.
He's literally commenting on the fact that we said you're following me. What do you mean distinctive?
I hope you don't take this the wrong way. It's just a collegial observation. In the 57th, we call it the Jamrock Shuffle. Officers from Jamrock's 41st Precinct tend to move a bit erratically.
How's that?
They say it's a scene-clearing technique developed by one of your lieutenants for gathering evidence. It's erratic, yet thorough. Prioritizes containers.
What? You're kidding me. Why containers?
I don't know. Containers contain, I guess. I'm making assumptions. We should move on.
All right. Let's leave. Now that we're done talking to Kim, I was going to go off and try to find something else to do, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought two things. One, after his experience with Billy and Victor, I feel like Officer Superstar's empathy is on the rise. So I wanted to allocate one of our 6 points to empathy. I think part of Superstar's transformation is that he's beginning to understand other people and be able to forgive them on his path to being able to forgive himself for all of the terrible mistakes he's made. So let's assign a point to empathy. So there we go, now it's 3. The next thing I was thinking that we could do is talk to Joyce.
You're back. Good. What can I help you with? More lessons in basic reality? My favorite part of the day. Go ahead, ask me anything.
While Kim is not with us. So let's try this volition check to ask him to step away while we discuss the Pale with Joyce, since we're over here anyway.
Good idea. Just ask him. He won't make a scene.
Okay. For a change, we actually succeeded at something. Kim, can I talk to the ma'am alone for a second, please?
Fine.
He steps away with his notes. And there he goes. He's walking away.
See? What can he do? You're a grown man.
We're a grown man. Sometimes. Now, what is the Pale, Joyce?
Are you sure you're sure? Your colleague seemed adamant.
This is all very ominous. Yes, Joyce, what is the Pale?
Okay. The Pale is the most dominant geological feature of the world, Detective. The separative tissue between the islas. It is the interoceanic mass.
Wait, and what is an isla?
Isla is a Messinian word for a continent of matter, enveloped on all sides by the Pale. Also, isolation, or landmass. We used to believe there was only one. In the last 4 centuries, we have discovered 7.
Oh, wow. That's neat. So there's like 8 total islas just sort of floating around in this Pale?
Windy, Seol, Samara, Ilmara, Grad, Katla, and this, Insulinde.
Oh. Wait, Seol and Samara are across the Pale? All these places are across the Pale? All these places we've been learning about are across the Pale? Wow. And Insulinde is?
An oceanic isla. It comprises mostly of water. Muindi is the largest, Katla the coldest, Insulinde the bluest. What can I say? Each is perishing and dear.
Wow, so clearly you can cross the Pale. That's kind of neat. Okay, what is the Pale like?
Achromatic, odorless, featureless. The Pale is the enemy of matter and life. It is not like any other, or anything in the world. It is the transition state of being into nothingness.
Okay, I'm still confused because I don't understand how you would cross something like that. Go on, please.
The negation of being.
The negation of...
That's right. The negation of being.
She tightens her hood around her neck. It's cold outside. Is it here?
No, Detective. We're safe. It begins there, 6,000 kilometers to the north, and even more to the south, east, and west. You are in the middle of the Isla.
And pointing north there?
An uproar of matter, darling. Rising into the Pale. Rolling. Evaporating even. A great vision. The area of transition between the world and the Pale is called porch collapse.
Porch collapse, that's an odd term.
Imagine a grey coronal mist, cold vapour, marked by spores of an opportunistic microorganism. A mold that's adapted to grow at the edge of the unrest. It's
what?
the most disco thing you will ever see.
It's the most disco thing we'll ever see. Okay. I was not expecting that.
You hear your pulse rise. The air feels caustic and cold suddenly.
It's difficult to describe, or even measure. Something whose fundamental property is the suspension of properties. Physical, epistemological, linguistic. The further into Pale you travel, the steeper the degree of suspension, right down to the mathematical. Numbers stop working. No one has yet passed the number barrier. It may be impossible.
Wow, I wonder if we're going to be able to travel into the Pale. I sort of pictured it as some kind of inaccessible fog separating worlds, but it sounds like it's nothing like that at all. Oh, see, this is a great question right here. If we're surrounded by Pale, how do you get from Isola to Isola?
Oh, it is so difficult for us.
A squall of birds. Hardware operating in the harbor. Firm. Self-evident.
That was our hearing.
It is possible to force dimensions on the Pale. In modern times, we can even compress its latitude, bouncing radio waves from one end to the other, shortening the path.
Oh, so maybe that's what we were doing when we were using that radio computer in the destroyed building, was talking to a different Isola across the Pale, and that's why it sounded so weird.
But it is still hard for humans to navigate the Pale without getting lost, or having our minds damaged.
The Pale can damage the mind?
Extensively.
How?
Some say the damage stems from extreme sensory deprivation. Others argue that Pale somehow consists of past information that's degrading, that it's rarefied past, not rarefied matter.
This entire thing may be beyond my intelligence to comprehend.
They call it the blend over of the self. The Pale does not only suspend the laws of physics, but also the laws of psychology, maybe history even. The human mind becomes over-radiated by past.
I know some people who seem to be over-radiated by their past, but I don't think that's quite the same thing.
Who says and who argues?
Okay, sure. Who says and who argues?
The logical positivists say, the dialectical materialists argue.
Okay, I'll take your word for it, since I don't understand half of what you just said. What does this over-radiation feel like?
It feels terrible. Absolutely terrible. International standards strictly limit civilian travelers to 6 days of Pale exposure per year.
So it's sort of like some kind of extreme radiation, except instead of actual radiation, it impacts existential being. That's wild.
It's more for her. Way more.
The limit is more than 6 days? You're not a civilian passenger?
No, Lieutenant Dubois. I'm entreprenetic business class. I'm cleared and trained for 22 days of Pale transit annually.
So you can train to survive in the Pale? Are you over-radiated?
Up to my gills, officer.
What is entropinetic?
Entreprenetics is the scientific study of the Pale, or a recent iteration of it by way of grad. The study of the Pale reaches back 6,000 years. The Pericarnassians called it the Western Plain.
They had not traveled the entire circumference of the Pericarnassian super-Isola. It was not merely in the west, it was everywhere, even then, surrounding them.
Oh, so it's sort of like when the Europeans crossed the Atlantic and thought America was India. They just didn't realize that the world was bigger than it was. Did they cross it? The Western Plain?
There are signs of pre-modern crossings. Successful navigation of the Pale relies not just on technical know-how, but intensive psychological preparation. Some of these tactics have been known for thousands of years.
What has entreprenetics changed then?
Nothing. We remain powerless before the Pale. The only real advance in Pale transit is the speed with which an aerostatic craft can pierce it. Less exposure leads to less effects later.
Sure, that makes sense. Aerostatic craft?
Hybrid airships, Detective. Conventional rotors or jet engines no longer add velocity after the point of reference for motion is suspended, once you've crossed from near Pale to far Pale.
But the laws of physics change.
In essence, we throw them in and they come out the other end. If we throw them precisely.
And if we do not?
Then they don't.
It's sort of like falling out of warp in the Star Trek universe, I guess. Or getting stuck in warp.
Gone, like a skipping stone beneath the surface.
How much Pale is there compared to the world?
The Pale outweighs reality 2 to 1. There is more Pale than there is matter, and the ratio is slipping.
Slipping how? To our detriment, or...?
What do you think, Detective?
I think it's growing. There's more and more of the Pale.
Precisely. One of the few measurable effects of the Pale is that it is expanding at an unknown rate.
Wow. I wonder if it's consuming the Isolas. I guess with all this description, it's likely that we're going to be able to enter the Pale.
An intuitive conclusion of that development is that one day the Pale will cover everything. But this sort of talk is mostly left to extremists.
Cover everything? That can't be. Where would we go?
Most people, and indeed most private and government sector organizations, entire civilizations and religions even, find handy ways to ignore or downplay that knowledge.
Yeah. People don't like to contemplate their own destruction.
I suggest you do the same. It doesn't look like you're doing the same. The suggestion was meant in earnest, Detective. Live life.
Are you under the impression we haven't been living life to this point? Let's return to reality, please, even though I don't really want to.
Yes, sweet reality. But before we do, tell me, Detective, is this the first time you're hearing this? Do you really not remember anything?
I sometimes sense vague shadows of a past, and it's not good.
Then tell me, what do you think of the Pale?
I want to say, you were right, it's disco, or its advance can only be stopped with immediate, total, ruthless communism. Both those seem ridiculous. I'm going to just go with the basic. It's terrifying. Her eyes tense, crow's feet radiate from them. She observes you, your bloodshot eyes and swollen face.
You really didn't know. This does not spell good for the investigation, Detective. If you don't know even this, then...
This, I believe, in fact, this investigation will be how we reconstitute our life. This investigation will be my masterpiece, the one they remember me by, I promise.
I hope so. I truly do. If I may suggest, hold on to your colleague, Kitsuragi. I ran a check on him and he is very competent. In the meanwhile...
Yes, he is very competent. In the meanwhile...
You have me. I will assist you in any way I can, even if we have to do it one basic term at a time.
She gives us a slight bow. See, I feel like Everard and Joyce are naturally lined up to be opponents. And Everard is slimy as can be, and Joyce is actually seemingly helpful, but there's no question she's got some kind of ulterior motive. She's not our friend, but she's so much more helpful than Everard has been.
Good. You have not passed out from it. Perhaps I worried for nothing. Are we still on the reality lowdown, or should we do actual police work now?
I think we've done as much reality as we're gonna do, so... That was fucking insane, Kim.
Yes, well, the rest of us have dealt with it for thousands of years, so...
He looks around, a little uncomfortable now.
You will have to deal with it, too, the lieutenant thinks. This is why I didn't want you to know.
Yeah, okay, you're protecting us. But we're stronger than that. Right, let's get to work, Lieutenant.
Good luck, detectives.
She nods to us goodbye. Well, that was absolutely fascinating, and we leveled up again. What to do next? We'll figure out what's next in the next episode. In the meantime, I'm going to contemplate the Pale. You should contemplate liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and having your pet spayed or neutered, but not both.